On serving or not serving in the government. 39 sections. In this chapter, the principle of serving or not serving in the government is discussed. As one's personal life has been cultivated and his family has been regulated, he may serve in the government. However, whether one advances or not, and whether one accepts or declines an office, one should follow righteousness alone. This is a point that should be carefully examined. Cheng-Yi said, "A worthy in a humble position should not go forward himself to seek office. If he does, he will never be trusted. This is why ancient worthies always waited for the ruler to invite them with the utmost respect and in the best manner before they went to serve. This was not because they regarded themselves as important, but because unless the ruler honors virtue and delights in moral principles to this extent, it is not worthwhile having anything to do with him." When a superior man is waiting for the opportune time, he holds on to himself peacefully and quietly. Although he is waiting, he remains at ease as if he were to wait all his life. This is why he can apply the principle of constancy. If one shows any interest, even though he does not advance to offer his services, he will not be at ease with that principle. The principle of constancy is also the principle of to wait for the opportune time. The P, to associate hexagram, indicates that there will be good fortune. Let the subject of divination re-examine himself as to whether his virtue is outstanding, lasting, and correct. If so, there will be no error. Master Cheng-Yi's commentary says, when people associate and become intimate with each other, they must follow the proper way. If they follow the wrong way, there will be occasions for repentance, and that is an error. Therefore, one must investigate as if by divination to decide if the person to be associated with is good, and if so, associate with him. If the virtue of the associated parties concerned is outstanding, lasting, and correct, there will be no error. Outstanding means possessing the proper principle of a ruler. Lasting means to be permanent, and correct means to follow the right principle. When the superior becomes associated with an inferior, he should possess these three qualities. When the inferior follows the superior, he should seek them in the ruler. Then there will be no error. The text of the lowest undivided line of the hexagram U, to walk, says, the lowest line shows its subject walking his accustomed path. If he goes forward, there will be no error. Master Cheng's commentary says, if one is not at ease with his usual poverty and humble station, his advance will be motivated by greed and salacious desire. He wants to do away with his poverty and humble station, but not to do anything positive. After he has achieved his advancement, he will surely be extremely arrogant. Therefore, if he goes forward, there will be error. The worthy walks his accustomed path with ease. He is happy with his situation, and his advance will be to do something positive. Therefore, if he achieves his advancement, there will be positive action and all will be good. If one's desire to seek honored station and the desire to practice the way are at war inside him, how can he walk his accustomed path with ease? When the great man is obstructed, he upholds his integrity and does not mix with bad people. Although he is obstructed from attaining his proper station, the way flourishes. Therefore it is said, the great man though obstructed, will flourish. If one personally flourishes without following the way, it is the way that is obstructed. In following anything, if one is correct, he will get away from what is depraved. But if he follows what is wrong, he will lose what is right. He can never have both. If the second lowest divided line of the hexagram sway to follow is attached to the lowest line, it will lose the fifth. Therefore, the commentary says, he cannot be with both at the same time. This is to admonish people that in following correctness, one should concentrate on it. The first yang, undivided line at the bottom, symbolizes a little boy, while the fifth line from the bottom, also yang line and undivided, symbolizes an adult. The lowest line is near to the second line, although the fifth line directly responds to the second line. It is far away. The second line is a yin line, divided and weak. It does not see principle clearly and does not hold itself firmly. Furthermore, its weak nature is unstable and cannot hold itself. If it were to be intimate with any line, it is inevitable that it would ignore the fifth line, which is far away, and incline to the lowest line, which is near. It cannot be with both at the same time. This is the symbolism of the hexagram. Master Chung used this to admonish people to choose what is correct and concentrate on it. What the superior man regards as adornment, popular society regards as a shame. But what popular society regards as honorable, the superior man regards as lowly. Therefore it is said, one adorns his feet, he discards a carriage and walks on foot. Popular society considers power and position as glory, but the superior man considers moral principles as honorable. Therefore he prefers to discard the carriage, the use of which is contrary to moral principles, and is contented with walking on foot. The text of the topmost undivided line of the hexagram Ku, trouble, says, one does not serve kings or lords, but attends to his own affairs in a lofty spirit. His commentary says, he does not serve kings or lords, but his aim may be a model to others. Master Chung Yi's commentary says, there are many ways for scholars to be lofty. Some embrace virtue, have no opportunity to serve, and maintain themselves with great purity. Some understand the principles of where to stop and contentment, and retire to preserve themselves. Some weigh their lots and capacities and are contented to remain unknown. Some maintain themselves with obvious independence, disdain affairs of the world, and live alone with personal purity. In these various situations, the aims may be great or small, and the principles may be right or wrong. Nevertheless, all these scholars attend to their affairs in a lofty spirit. When the commentary says that the aim may be a model, it means that, whether the person advances or retires, he is in accordance with the way. Someone asked, what is the difference between those who know the principle of where to stop and be contented, and those who weigh their lots and capacities? Jushi answered, knowing where to stop and be contented concerns what one can do. Weighing one's lot and capacities concerns what one cannot do. In my humble opinion, those who embrace virtue have big aims and follow a correct principle. Those who live alone with personal purity have small aims and follow a wrong principle. Those who know where to stop and to be contented, and those who weigh their capacities and lots have similar aims than those who embrace virtue. In the hexagram twin, to retire, yin begins to grow. A superior man, knowing how subtle and incipient forces work, will of course warn himself of the danger. However, the sage will not discard right away his ideas of doing something. Therefore, we have the instructions to act according to the time, for to a small extent it will be advantageous to be firm. The twin hexagram consists of the trigram kun, to stop, at the bottom, and the trigram ten, heaven, on top. The two yin forces begin to grow. One should of course warn himself that the tian is strong on top, and the second highest and second lowest lines are in the correct middle positions and respond to each other. Under these circumstances, a superior man can still go forward and backward according to the time and does not always have to retire. Although he will not be entirely correct, he will fortunately be correct to some extent. When sages and worthies know that the way is being destroyed in the world, can they remain seated, watching the chaos, and refuse to save the world? They will happily devote their efforts to the world before its chaos reaches the ultimate point, strengthen what is weak on their side, and make it difficult for the opposite side to advance. If it should be possible to accomplish an easy peace, even Confucius and Mencius would consider it worth doing. What Wang Yun did for the Han Dynasty and what Xie An did for the Qin Dynasty are examples. The lowest undivided line of the hexagram, Ming Yi, brightness injured, indicates that, although the fact of the situation is not yet obvious, one's position is very dangerous. Unless one possesses the intelligence to see how subtle and incipient forces work, one cannot avoid it. As one avoids the situation, how can the world not doubt him and blame him? But the superior man does not hesitate to go away from the situation because of the blame of the world. If he waits for the public completely to understand him, he will already be damaged and cannot get away. The lowest divided line of the hexagram, Jin, forwardness, indicates that one is in a lowly position and is beginning to advance. How can one be trusted by his superior right away? If he is not trusted, he should rest in the principle of the mean and maintain his position, be relaxed, liberal in spirit and generous in mind, and not anxious for the superior's trust. If he is too anxious, either he will be hasty and thus lose his integrity, or, if disappointed, become angry and thus hurt the principle by which he should serve. Therefore it is said, whether he advances or keeps back, let him be correct, and there will be good fortune. If he is not trusted, let him be generous in mind, and there will be no error. However, the sage was afraid that later generations did not understand the meaning of liberality and generosity, and that those in position failing in their duties might consider themselves as being generous. He therefore especially said that the lowest line indicates that if one is generous there will be no error, for at the beginning of advancement he has not yet been appointed to an official position. If while occupying an official position one is not trusted by his superior so that he fails in his duties, he should not remain for a single day. However, situations differ. Whether one should remain in his position for long or retire quickly, he should do so according to the current situation. There are probably omens to tell him ahead of time. When two people are united incorrectly, they can never remain together for long. If they are united according to the correct principle, they will never part in the end. Therefore the man of virtue follows principle and acts easily and naturally, while the man of wisdom knows how the subtle and incipient forces work and holds his position firmly. To follow principle and act easily and naturally means to do what is proper according to the situation and not purposely to seek contact with one's superior. To know the subtle and incipient forces and hold one's position firmly means to know the subtlety of things and not to seek a union carelessly. At the time of difficulty, if the superior man has done his best to prevent it but cannot avoid it, that is his fate. He should investigate his fate to the utmost in order to fulfill his aim. When he knows that according to fate the situation should be so, his mind will not be disturbed by poverty, obstacles, or calamity. He will merely act according to what is right. If he does not know his fate, he will be afraid when he encounters danger or difficulty, and stumble when he suffers poverty, and what he holds on to will be lost. How can he fulfill his aim to do good? Chang'e interpreted Chirming to mean to investigate fate to the utmost. Although this interpretation is possible, in the Analects the term generally means to give up one's life. The wife of a poor scholar and the minister of a weak country should each be contented with what is correct and no more. If they choose to follow popular tendencies toward glory and power, their evil will be so great that they will not be tolerated in the world. In a position of difficulty, one should be contented with what is correct and not choose to follow popular tendencies. If one remains firm in the bitter life and is contented with what is correct, these tendencies will never win over moral principles. The third undivided line of the hexagram, Qing, well, indicates that the well has been cleared out but is not used. It indicates that men with talents and wisdom are not being used and that they feel sad because they are disappointed. The line is a strong one but does not occupy a central position, and therefore its subject is anxious to be active. He is different from the one who, when called to office, will be active, and when not called to office, will rest in retirement. The third undivided line is a strong yang line and occupies the highest position in the lower trigram. This means that as far as the well is concerned, it has been cleared and can be used. But the line does not occupy the fifth position, and therefore the well is not used. The line occupies a strong position, but not the central one. The subject is anxious to be active. Therefore he is sad. He is different from sages and worthies who become active or retire according to whether they are called to office. They remain peaceful and do not let the matter trouble their minds. The second divided line of the Ko change hexagram is in the central position and is correct. It is therefore neither partial nor obscured. Being enlightened, it can fully realize facts and principles. Responding to the line above, it is powerful. Its substance being gentle, there will be no opposition. The time is ripe, the position is secured, and the ability is adequate. The conditions for making a change are the best possible, but it is necessary to wait to have the confidence of superiors and inferiors. Therefore, the subject of the line makes his changes after some time has passed. People with the ability and virtue of the second line should go forward to put their principles into practice. There will be good fortune and no error. If they do not go forward, they will lose the opportunity to do so, and that would be an error. As it is time for the change, the time is ripe. As the position responds to the above, it is secured. And being enlightened and of gentle substance, one's ability is adequate. These are the best conditions in which to make the change. But one should wait to have the confidence of superiors and inferiors before making the change. Therefore the text says, the subject of the line makes his change after some time has passed. This is in order to be most careful. The cauldron, being full of things, is symbolic of a man of ability and undertaking. He should be careful about where he is inclined to go. If he is not careful about where he goes, he will fall into unrighteousness. Therefore it is said, the cauldron is full of things. Let the subject of the lion be careful where he goes. When a scholar is in a high position, his duty is to save his ruler from making mistakes and not to follow him in wrongdoing. When a scholar is in a low position, sometimes he should save the ruler, sometimes follow the ruler, and sometimes follow the ruler only after he has failed to save him. To save means to save the ruler from defects, and to follow means to follow his mistakes. One in a high position should not sit and look at his ruler's mistakes without doing anything. But it may not be within the duty or ability of one in a low position to save the ruler. In his thoughts, the superior man does not get away from his position. By position is meant one's function or lot. All things have their proper places. If they are well adjusted in their places, they will rest happy. If one stops when he should go on, remains in the position for long when he should leave quickly, or is excessive or insufficient in what he does, he is getting away from his position. How farther astray are those who go beyond their lot or occupy wrong positions. It is difficult for what one abides in to last long or to last to the end. Therefore, some give up their moral integrity in old age, some lose their principles at the end, and some abandon their work after a long time. These are common troubles among men. The topmost undivided line of the hexagram Ken indicates that the subject is maintaining his earnestness to the end. This is the principle of abiding at its best. Therefore it is said, there is good fortune in his earnestness in abiding. The text of the lowest undivided line of the hexagram Chengfu, central sincerity, says, there will be good fortune in estimating. His commentary says, there has been no change of mind. Master Cheng-Yi's commentary says, when one begins to have confidence in others, his mind has not yet been influenced by selfish desires. If his confidence is estimated at this point, the estimate will be correct. Therefore, there will be good fortune. After his mind has followed his selfish desires, it will change. Any estimation then will be incorrect. A worthy knows only righteousness. To him, fate is included in it. People below the average deal with righteousness in the light of fate. Fate refers to obscurity or prominence, and longevity or brevity of life. It originates from our physical nature and involves the principle of necessity. Righteousness refers to right and wrong, and whether or not a thing should be done. It is based on the principle of nature and involves the correctness of what should be done. The worthy knows only what should be done according to righteousness. Fate is already included in it. People below average are not capable of truly knowing righteousness and acting naturally and easily according to it. However, they know their fate has been fixed and dare not transgress the bounds of righteousness to seek foolishly beyond their lot. Hence, they deal with righteousness in the light of fate. And it has been said, when we seek in the proper way, but whether we get what we seek depends on fate. That means seeking is of no use to getting. In that case, people know that according to their fate, it is useless for them to seek, and consequently, they decide not to seek. As to the worthy, he seeks according to the proper way, and gets the thing he seeks through righteousness. For him, it is not necessary to talk about fate. There is only one way to handle one's difficulty or danger. After he has done all he can do, he should calmly leave it alone. When something happens, some people constantly think about it and are not willing to leave it alone. What use is it after all? If they do not know how to handle it and to leave it alone, that means they know neither righteousness nor fate. When one faces difficulty or danger, one should examine the proper way of handling it. This is righteousness. After he has done his best in handling it, he should be contented with it. Whether he succeeds or fails, and whether he is fortunate or unfortunate, is beyond his control. This is fate. When something happens and one cannot handle it, that means he does not know righteousness. Or if after he has handled the matter he cannot leave it alone, that means he does not understand fate. The pupil was a student at the National University. He wanted to return to his native district to take the civil service examinations. When he was asked the reason, he answered, "The people of Sai seldom read the Taiji, Book of Rites of the Elder Tai. There will be an advantage to me when the examinations are graded." The teacher said, "This very idea of yours will prevent you from entering into the way of Yao and Shun." Zikong was a man of great learning. When was he absorbed in matters of money as if he were lost? But he was not unconcerned about having little or plenty. Now poverty or wealth depend on fate. As he was concerned with them, it is clear that he did not believe in the way. This is why the sage said he did not accept the decree of heaven. One who aims at the way must get rid of such ideas as yours before it will be possible for him to talk about entering into the way. When one has the ambition to hear the way in the morning and die in the evening content, he will not be satisfied for a single day with anything with which he should not be satisfied. He cannot be satisfied with it for a single moment, let alone a day. For example, Zhuangzi insisted on having his mat changed. Only then was he satisfied. The way is the self-evident principle of things. If one has heard the way, he will be in accord with it and will die content without any regret. Someone asked, "Suppose Zhuangzi had not had the mat changed, would you consider him to have heard the way or not?" Jushi answered, "It does not matter whether he had the mat changed or not. What matters is whether in his daily life he had heard and applied the way. If he had heard the way and by chance something could not be taken care of at the moment of death, that could not be helped. If he had really heard the way, he would not tolerate anything like that at the moment of death. Is that correct? What happens at that moment is a great event in life. Since he had seen the way, he naturally would not tolerate anything like that." People are not able to feel this way simply because they do not understand true principles. Understanding true principles means truly understanding right and wrong. There is something unintelligible about Changyi's theory of true principle. The phrase "truly understood to be right or wrong" is probably a mistake on the part of the recorder of the conversation. Some words must be missing before the word "understand." Principle is principle and understanding is understanding. There is true principle in everything. Man should understand it in a true way. Someone asked, "Principle is in things whereas understanding is in man. Is that correct?" Jushi answered, "That is right. True principles and true understanding are different. Here they are spoken of as one. There must be some mistake in the recording. There are true principles and we should understand them truly. If one's understanding is firm and correct, that is true. If one's understanding is not correct, it will be a waste of time." When true principles are realized in one's own mind, they are different. If one merely hears them or talks about them, he does not truly understand them in his mind. If he does understand them, he will not be satisfied with that which he should not be satisfied. In one's life, there are certain things one generally will not do, although in certain situations he may. Take a scholar knight, for example. Suppose you tell him to break in and steal. He will not do it even if you threaten to kill him. But in other things, he may not be so resolute. As to those who read books, They all know how to expound rules of conduct and moral principles. Take, for example, the great lords and high officials. They are all able to discourse on external things like carriages and ceremonial caps. But when they have to choose between benefit and harm, they do not know how to follow moral principles, but instead follow after honor and wealth. In these cases, we can only say that they do not truly understand principles. All people avoid the danger of falling into water or fire because they truly understand it. If one has the feeling of shrinking from evil when he sees it as if he is shrinking from boiling water, then his understanding will be different from the ordinary. Once there was a man who had been harmed by a tiger. When people talk about tigers, even a small boy knows that a tiger is fearful. But no one's response could compare to that of the one who had been harmed by a tiger. He had a frightened expression, and his fear was absolutely sincere because he truly understood. One who achieves true understanding in his mind is a virtuous person. He does not need to exert any effort. A student, however, needs to exert effort. Some ancients sacrificed their lives. How could they do so unless they truly understood? They must have truly understood that life is neither as important as righteousness nor as satisfactory as death. Therefore, they sacrificed their lives to fulfill humanity. All they did was to accomplish what is right. The difference Mencius made between Shun and Chur is purely that between righteousness and profit. This means that the difference between them is not very much. It is but an iota. The difference between righteousness and profit is only that between impartiality and selfishness. As soon as we depart from righteousness, we will be talking about profit. Merely to calculate is to be concerned with advantage and disadvantage. Unless there are advantage and disadvantage, what need is there to calculate? It is natural for people to be concerned with advantage and disadvantage, and all people avoid disadvantage and go after advantage. For the sage does not consider advantage and disadvantage. He only considers whether according to righteousness he should or should not do a thing. In this way, fate is included. Changyi substitutes the idea of righteousness for goodness in the book of Mencius because goodness is general, whereas righteousness is concrete. Furthermore, it is a most suitable contrast to profit. Generally speaking, we Confucian scholars dare not expect to cultivate the way deeply. What we expect to achieve is that our preservation of mind will be correct, that we shall be able to distinguish good and evil, and that we shall have a sense of integrity and shame. There are many such people, and they inevitably improve step by step. Chao Qingping asked, "The master seldom talked about profit. What kind of profit was it?" The teacher said, "It was not only profit in the sense of money. Any idea of profit to oneself is wrong. For example, if in doing anything one seeks to make it safe and convenient for himself, that is motivated by the sense of profit. To a sage, righteousness is profit. Whenever he is at ease with righteousness, there is profit for him. The learning of the Buddhist is based on profit. It is therefore wrong." Someone asked, "Master Chung said that whenever a sage is at ease with righteousness, there is profit for him. The sage is at ease simply because he does what should be done. Is that correct?" Jushi answered, "Yes, when everything fulfills its lot, that is profit. When the ruler attains to what it is to be a ruler, the minister attains to what it is to be a minister, the father attains to what it is to be a father, and the son attains to what it is to be a son. What greater profit is there?" Question. Xingchi followed you for a long time. I believe that on the whole he was ignorant. Later he became extremely desperate. What do you think? The teacher said, "It is not correct to say that he was completely ignorant, simply because he has not been able to overcome his selfish mind with moral principles has he become like this. Xie was going to the capital from Sichuan. When he passed through Luoyang, he went to call on Master Cheng. The master asked him, "Where are you going?" "I am going to take the examination to become a teacher," he answered. The teacher remained silent. Teacher asked, "What do you think?" The teacher said, "Once I bought a servant and wanted to give her an examination. Her mother became angry and would not permit it. She said, 'My daughter is not something to be examined. Now you seek to become a teacher by taking an examination. You will surely be ridiculed by this old woman.'" Thereupon, Che gave up his journey. When the teacher, Changyi, 1086, was lecturer to the emperor, he did not apply for his salary. The several gentlemen finally sent an official dispatch to the Department of Revenues to inquire why his salary had not been paid. The department asked him for the record of his salaries in previous official positions. The teacher said, "I entered government service directly from the farm and have no record of previous salaries." According to traditional practice, when a person serves in the capital for the first time, it is up to him to petition for the payment of salary. The teacher did not make the request, feeling that since the government had invited him to serve, it was up to the government to have the storekeeper to continue to send grain and the master of the kitchen to send meat. Thereupon the Department of Revenues was instructed to issue a certificate of record of salary. The teacher also abstained from petitioning for a title of honor for his wife. Fan Chunfu asked the reason. The teacher said, "I entered government service directly from the farm. At that time, I declined appointment 3 times before I accepted the order. Is there any reason why I should petition for a title of honor for my wife now?" Nowadays, people beg for special grants of honor. According to moral principle, should that not be done? Everyone thinks that if one is entitled to it, there is no harm in asking. The teacher said, "The trouble is that today scholars and officials are accustomed to begging. They beg at every turn. How about asking for titles of honor for one's father or grandfather? This is a substantially different matter." When he was asked repeatedly to explain, he merely said, "It requires a long explanation. Let us talk about it some other time." I have thought over why it requires a long explanation. Latter-day people merely send in petitions. That is begging. They do so to get official position and do so for everything. In ancient times, men of talents and virtue were raised to government positions. At that time, the bestowing and granting of honors was done by the government itself. What need was there to beg? I believe this was Master Cheng's idea. A title of honor for one's parents and a title of honor for one's wife are substantially different. It is excellent sentiment for a son to seek prominence and glory for his parents. It is incorrect to say that he should not make the request. However, if we say that one should request, well, in the case of Master Cheng, he was specially invited to serve, and his case was therefore different from ordinary cases. This was why it was difficult for him to explain. In the Han Dynasty, when virtuous and able men were selected through a written examination, these men were still recommended by others. Take Kong Sun Hung, for example. He went to answer the questions only after he had been strongly urged to do so. As to virtuous men of later generations, they have sought for opportunity and recommended themselves. It is commendable if they really intend to answer the questions of the emperor and frankly express their opinions on world events. If they aim at wealth and honor, they will be arrogant and undisciplined if successful, and sad and dissolute if disappointed. People often say that I do not teach students to study for the civil service examinations. When have I refrained from teaching students to study for them? If one does not study and expects to pass the examinations, he is depending on the principle of nature and not making any personal effort. However, it is enough to be qualified to pass the examinations. If, in addition to that, one makes exhaustive efforts to find ways and means to be sure to pass them, he is deluded. Question: when one's family is poor and his parents are old, and taking the examinations in order to find a government position, he cannot help worrying about success or failure. How can he avoid such worry? Master Changyi said, he worries simply because his will has not overcome his passions. If his will overcomes his passions, he will naturally be freed from such worry. When one's mind is poor and his parents are poor, he should become an official and earn his emolument. But whether he succeeds in doing so depends on fate. That is all right as far as oneself is concerned. How about one's parents? What concerns oneself and what concerns one's parents are the same. If one does not succeed, what can he do about his fate? Confucius said, without knowing one's fate, it is impossible to be a superior man. If one does not know his fate, he will try to escape from difficulty and danger. Whenever there is gain or loss, he will be moved. And whenever he sees any gain, he will rush toward it. How can he be a superior man? Someone said that preparation for the civil service examinations interferes with one's effort at real learning. This is not the case. If one spends 10 days each month in preparing for the examinations, he can devote the remaining days to true learning. However, if one's mind is not devoted to one thing, it will be devoted to another. Therefore, the danger of preparing for the examinations is not that it hurts one's effort at true learning, but that it destroys one's will to study. Someone asked about the harm preparing for civil service examinations does to one's effort at learning. Jushi said, Master Chung said that if one spent 10 days in a month preparing for the examinations, there were still 20 days for study. If one's will to learn is shaken by the preparation, there will be no cure for him. Preparation for the examinations does not harm one's study. When did our elders abstain from taking the examinations? There is harm because the minds of people today are not fixed. Since they are concerned about success or failure in the examinations, they feel quite differently about understanding the written word. Master Chongsai said, the glory of hereditary emolument is intended by kings to select men of achievement and honor men of virtue, to love them and to treat them generously so as to show that imperial kindness is unlimited. The descendants should be happy in their positions and earnest in their efforts in order to do their duties and fulfill their responsibility. They should strengthen their integrity and avoid taking advantages, so as to continue the good heritage of their families. But descendants of lords and great officials of recent times have gone so far as to lower themselves to the level of commoners, trying to be skillful in poetry, in order to sell themselves to those in charge of civil service examinations. They do not realize that seeking an official position is incompatible with moral principles. On the contrary, they look down upon those who follow principles as incompetent. They do not realize that hereditary privileges are a glory. On the contrary, they consider a hollow fame as a good way to continue the accomplishment of their ancestors. What is really in their minds? If one does not depend on the strength of others or consider making use of what others have, he will not be mindful of their power. One is bothered by the power and possessions of others because he depends on them. If he does not depend on their power or make use of what they have, he will respect himself and regard the power and possessions of others as of little importance. People often say they can be content with poverty and humble station. In reality, they are merely helpless and know of no way out, and their ability is too small for them to do anything. If they could make any move, they would not remain content. Only when one truly realizes that moral principles are more enjoyable than the achievement of wealth or the fulfillment of material desires can he remain content. A great trouble with the world is that people are afraid of being laughed at. They are afraid that others will ridicule them if they do not keep horses and carriages, if they eat crude food or wear poor clothing, or if they are poor and humble in station. They do not realize that one should live if according to principle he should live, and die if according to principle he should die. One should have no regret if today he owns a great deal and tomorrow has to throw it away, or if today he is in a position of wealth and honor and tomorrow will starve. He simply does what is right.